How shall I present this? I think the best way is really to read the Wikipedia entry. So, and explain it to you as I go along. Ben Klassen is the man who coined the phrase Rahua, as in racial holy war. I've been assured that it doesn't really mean what it seems to mean, and that it was something short of violence. But I don't know, really. I mean, even if it doesn't really promote violence, it's not really a good idea to use such a tainted source. But really, what is currently being promoted by the Church of Creativity is essentially Ben Klassen's ideas. And a certain nationalist has got himself into trouble up north over white power stickers and symbols and that sort of thing. And one must ask whether there couldn't be a better, safer way of doing this without ending oneself up in trouble with the law. I myself have been to the cop shop and spent a whole day there because I dared to ask a series of offensive questions about a woman who was featured on the BBC. There was nothing defamatory about my questions, except that she didn't like it and she called the cops and, they came round and took me away. And this is the sort of thing that happens increasingly often nowadays. With the state being so determined to use a sledgehammer to crush us little nuts, is it wise to use the ideas of Ben Klassen? I don't think so, and it's a shame because it tends to discredit your cause when you use these ideas that are associated with extremism. I am myself accused of extremism just because it's a commonly overused term to discredit opponents. The opponents of liberals, and in these more restrictive times, we should tread a little bit more carefully and obviously use the best and biggest idea around that we can still legally use. And that's why I propose secular Quranism, because it is based, after all, on the holy book of an established world religion. And doing this actually gives you a degree of protection. I mean, why do so many anti-Semites use the cloak of Christianity to talk about the synagogue of Satan and, Jews being responsible for the death of Jesus and that sort of thing? It's obviously using Christianity as, a kind of shield to dignify or anti-Semitism. And this, I think, is really the problem with the post-Christian Western Gentile. I mean, not that it takes away the problem of anti-Semitism, because anti-Semitism can be explained both in theological and psychological terms, I suppose. One of the most arresting themes in the 10 Commandments is the commandment not to envy our neighbor, not to envy him, his spouse, his servant, his ass, or his wife, or anything that is of his. So the assumption really is that envy immediately puts one on the slippery slope to hatred and doing mean things to the person envied. And this fact is already acknowledged in the Old Testament. This was obviously in the Torah, either Leviticus or Deuteronomy. I think it was Deuteronomy. And of course it is a kind of thought crime, that of envy, and obviously you don't have to hate somebody because they're a Jew. It just gives an additional thing. If you think he has something you don't have, and obviously this is something that will make you hate him because you want the thing that this person has, be it his servant, his wife, his ass, his or anything that is of his, including his status, of course. So whether we like it or not, the inescapable logic of Jews being God's chosen people gives them this status above those who weren't chosen. It has been said that Judaism is the senior branch of the Abrahamic faiths. And if you look at the thing logically, you will see that but for Judaism, there would be no Jews. But for there being Jews, there would be no Jesus for Christians to worship. And whichever way you slice it, Jews have this theoretical higher status that drives the Gentile mad. And even if this Gentile were to deny the existence of God, the fact that the Jew has something that he is envied for means that obviously they have the highest status because they have the thing that is envied by the Gentile, which makes the Gentile hate the Jew. And even as the Gentile blames the Jew for everything, they are still conceding that the Jew has the superior status by being perpetrator. So look at it this way: there's a situation where there's a crime, and you have the perpetrator and the victim. Who has a higher status? It is, of course, the perpetrator. And obviously, the perpetrator would only have his status lowered were he to be apprehended, arrested, charged, tried, and convicted. Otherwise, the perpetrator retains a higher status than the victim. The theological explanation for anti-Semitism is that of it being an evil. If we accept that all good and evil come from God, and God created good and evil, and if anti-Semitism is an evil, then God created it too. Why would he create such a thing? the answer must be that he created anti-Semitism to punish Jews when they disobey his laws. So there are two competing explanations for anti-Semitism, and both are valid. They are a reasonable way of looking at things if you believe in the Abrahamic God. And if you don't, it can be explained in social and psychological terms. We have a tendency to envy those who have the things that we don't have and would like. Now, the protection that has been conferred on Jews, legal protection of, giving them the right to be protected from having their feelings offended, is clearly offensive to Gentiles who cannot believe that in their own country they have a lower status to a powerful minority. This clearly drives them mad, and the more you tell them not to do it, the more they will feel the urge to do it and often give in to this temptation. It is rather like Pandora's box or Lot's wife or Adam and Eve. You know the stories when they were told not to do something. So God basically told Adam and Eve, who had no idea about the tree of life and knowledge, not to eat from the tree of life and knowledge. So it could be deduced that he really was wanting to find an excuse to kick out Adam and Eve, because if they hadn't been kicked out of Eden, then we wouldn't exist if we subscribe to that narrative. And so it seems that, well, it's reverse psychology, isn't it? So he said, don't do this thing that you never thought of doing until I told you about it, and and then I'm off for the weekend, and don't smoke my stash, don't look in this cupboard, don't go into that room, and you will find that children will do precisely the thing that you told them not to do. And so it was the same with Adam and Eve. And Pandora was told not to look in a box, and of course she did, and all the evils of the world came out. Lot's wife, when fleeing from Sodom and Gomorrah, well, Lot's wife was told not to look back. She couldn't resist it and was turned into a pillar of salt. So, yes, and finally there is this episode of 40 Towers called The Germans, when Basil Fawlty suffered from concussion. A mounted deer's head had fallen on him, and that was the cause of his concussion. And he was taken to hospital, but he wanted to go back to 40 Towers to serve the guests, and there were the Germans, and he didn't want to offend them, and he knew he shouldn't talk about the war. And guess what he did? It's very funny, actually, but that's the thing. If you tell people not to do something, they will want to do it all the more. Also, the fact that there isn't really any law against Holocaust denial in this country is particularly inviting for those who want to try their luck. And Alison Chabot wanted to try her luck because she had composed this very catchy song that was sung with great aplomb, I thought. But anyway, that was what got her into trouble. Obviously, she was proud of her song and she couldn't resist uploading it on the internet, onto YouTube, and she was charged with transmitting grossly offensive material through the internet. But that wasn't Holocaust denial, but we all know that was really what she was being done for. And of course it is outrageous that what is not, in fact, a crime has ended her up being imprisoned for, I think, a total of 9 weeks in a supposedly free society where everyone assumes they have freedom of expression, certainly freedom of expression within the law, and the law was somehow twisted and distorted to get her put in prison at the behest of the CAA, the campaign against anti-Semitism. Of course, this is outrageous. I'm sure Alison's grandfather, who died in the war, would not have thought of entering into such a war if the consequence of his entering the war meant that his granddaughter wouldn't be able to express what she believed was well within the law. In fact, if you look at her, carefully examine the words of her song, you will see that she was only mocking the fake survivors of the Holocaust and was not in any way denying it at all. She mentioned particular people who were known to have had their narratives doubted by the media. One of them was the Times of Israel, which I think is probably the most balanced of all the Jewish newspapers that I know of. But as we know, the current political environment is that of great censoriousness. Therefore, using the ideas of Ben Klassen, who is known to be a white supremacist, and I'll start reading now what his Wikipedia entry says about him. Ben Klassen, who died in 1993, was an American politician and white supremacist religious leader. He founded the Church of the Creator in the publication of his book, Nature's Eternal Religion, in 1973. Klassen was openly racist, anti-Semitic, and anti-Christian, and first popularized the term racial holy war within the white power movement. At one point, Klassen was a Republican Florida state legislator, as well as a supporter of George Wallace's presidential campaign. I don't know who George Wallace was, but he's a member of the Democrat Party and is best remembered for his staunch segregationist and populist views. In addition to his religious and political work, Klassen was an electrical engineer, and he was also the inventor of a wall-mounted electric can opener. Klassen held unorthodox views about dieting and health. He was a natural hygienist who opposed the germ theory of disease, as well as conventional medicine, and promoted a fruitarian raw food diet. Political career. Klassen served Broward County in the Florida House of Representatives from 1966 to 67, running on an anti-abusing, anti-government platform. He campaigned for election to the Florida Senate in 1967, but was defeated. That same year, he was vice chairman of an organization in Florida which supported George Wallace's presidential bid. Klassen was a member of the John Birch Society, and it's a right-wing political advocacy group supporting anti-communism and social conservatism. At one point, he operated an American opinion bookstore, but he became disillusioned with the society because of what he viewed as its tolerant position towards Jews. In November 1970, Klassen, along with Austin Davis, created the Nationalist White Party. The party's platform was directed at white Christians, and it was explicitly religious and racial in nature. The first sentence of the party's 14-point program is, "We believe that the white race was created in the image of the Lord." The logo of the Nationalist White Party was a W with a crown and a halo over it, and it would be used 3 years later as the logo of the Church of the Creator. Less than a year after he created the Nationalist White Party, Klassen began expressing apprehension about Christianity to his connections through letters. These letters were not well received, and they effectively ended the influence of the Nationalist White Party. So basically, he was saying the same thing as a former streaming partner of mine, Jen Schaaf, Church of Entropy, who basically blamed Christianity and Islam on Jews, saying that it was a conspiracy to weaken the white man and also to prevent Gentiles from practicing usury while cornering the market themselves. That was what Jen believed. Church of the Creator. In 1973, Klassen founded the Church of the Creator, COTC, with the publication of Nature's Eternal Religion. Individual church members are called creators, and the religion they practice is called creativity. In 1982, Klassen established the headquarters of his church in Otto, North Carolina. Klassen wrote that he established a school for boys. The original curriculum was a 2-week summer program that included activities such as hiking, camping, training and handling of firearms, archery, tennis, whitewater rafting, and other healthy outdoor activities, as well as instruction on the goals and doctrines of creativity and how they could best serve their own race in various capacities of leadership. So very much a Hitler Youth outfit. In July 1992, George Loeb, a minister in the church, was convicted of murdering a black sailor in Jacksonville, Florida. Fearing that a conviction might mean the loss of 20 acres of land worth about $400,000 in Otto, North Carolina, belonging to the church, Klassen sold it to another white supremacist, William Luther Pierce, author of the Turner Diaries, for $100,000. Klassen was Pontifex Maximus of the church until January 25, 1993, when he transferred the title to Dr. Rick McCarty. Well, Pontifex Maximus is, well, the Latin name for chief pontiff with, obviously Catholic and papal associations. Now, this comes a slightly dodgy bit, which, forgive me if I don't say the word in full. Racial holy war. Ben Klassen first popularized the term racial holy war, Rahowa, within the white nationalist movement. He also consistently called black people the N-word in public discourse as well as in the literature of the COTC, as opposed to many white nationalist leaders who use relatively more polite terms in public. Klassen wrote, "Furthermore, in looking up the word in Webster's dictionary, I found the term N-word very descriptive, a vulgar, offensive term of hostility and contempt for the black man. I can't think of anything that defines better and more accurately what our position should be if we are going to be for racial integrity and racial purity. We must take a hostile position toward the N-word. We must give him nothing but contempt." In his 1987 book, Rahowa, This Planet is All Ours, he claims that Jews created Christianity in order to make white people weaker, and he said that the first priority should be to smash the Jewish. How do I pronounce his word? Behemoth? Personal beliefs. Klassen was a natural hygienist who promoted a back-to-nature philosophy that espoused fresh air, clean water, sunshine, and outdoor exercise. He recommended a raw food diet which consisted of fruits and vegetables and believed that medicine and processed foods create cancer inside the body. Klassen wrote that food must be uncooked, unprocessed, unpreserved, and not tampered with in any other way. This further means it must be organically grown without the use of chemicals. Klassen promoted racial health and natural hygiene principles, and he was influenced by the works of Herbert M. Shelton. Klassen believed that fasting would cleanse the body of toxins, and he also believed that a fruitarian raw food diet would cure disease. Klassen rejected the germ theory of disease and believed that modern medicine was a Jewish multi-billion-dollar fraud. Klassen contributed an introduction and a chapter on eugenics to Arnold de Vries's book Salubrious Living. The book endorsed fasting, sunbathing, fruitarian and raw food dieting. Historian George Michael has written that, despite his advocacy of healthy nutrition, some of his associates claimed that in practice Klassen did not actually follow the salubrious living regimen because he often ate red meat and ice cream. Klassen firmly opposed religion because he believed it was superstitious and described Christianity as a Jewish creation which was designed to unhinge white people by promoting a completely perverted attitude about life and nature. He rejected the afterlife as nonsense. He argued that man's morality and sense of purpose is based on the laws of nature and racial loyalty. Klassen believed that the white race was the sole builder of civilization, and all of the advanced civilizations which existed in antiquity were created by white people, but they were destroyed because they practiced miscegenation. Death. Possibly depressed after the death of his wife, the failure of his church, and a diagnosis of cancer, and considering suicide a suitable way to end his life, Klassen took an overdose of sleeping pills either late on August 6 or early on August 7, 1993. Klassen was buried on his North Carolina property in an area which he had previously designated Ben Klassen Memorial Park. But really, the most relevant sentences in this entry would be Klassen's rejection of the afterlife as nonsense. And rejection of the idea of a deity. So he rejects the idea of the Abrahamic God, he rejects the idea of the afterlife. So what have you got there other than the dietary ideas of a dead man and who's rumoured to have broken his own strictures against unhealthy eating, such as eating ice cream and red meat. So how can you issue commandments? I've had PDF documents, and there are lots of commandments in I think something I call the white man's Bible, or something of that nature. I should be able to find it for you quickly, just to give you a flavour of it, I guess. Let me see. Yes, a white man's Bible. I'm sorry, my computer is so slow. I don't know what it thinks it's doing. And obviously it's taking time to open the document. But I think I should read a few pages just to give you a flavour of the thing. I think I've opened the wrong document anyway. So, one of the things that I think you should know about is his belief that is Klassen's belief that the French Revolution was something that could be blamed on Jews, and I think this idea comes from the protocols of the elders of Zion, which has been said to be a fake. But I think it's a bit far-fetched to blame the French Revolution on Jews, don't you? So, obviously he's a crank and didn't really get far with his ideas. The fact that he committed suicide doesn't stand him in good stead. But I'm afraid I opened the wrong thing. Let me try the other one, which was the one that I had in mind as having lots of commandments. Oh, it's not this one either. That's a third one that I can open for you. And finally, it will be the one. But what I was trying to do is get all the commandments. You see, the commandments, he actually calls them commandments. And what I'm trying to say is that it is logically incoherent for somebody to call this religion a Bible when he doesn't believe in a deity. So, it's like, who is issuing the commandment? Who? And, well, not a deity, because he actually rejects the idea of a deity. So if he thinks it's him after he is dead, then it still doesn't make sense, because he doesn't believe in an afterlife. So he's contradicting himself when he talks in terms of these commandments, which I now can't find. Bear with me a little bit. There's just so much stuff now. I can't find all of them at the same time. Or in good time. But I should I'll just wait for the thing to load, and it's taking a while because I have to scroll up. But basically, it's just a quick point about if he talks about commandments in his religion, which doesn't have a God, and which doesn't believe in an afterlife, then who is issuing these commandments, which I cannot find just yet to read to you. So that's why I'm saying it's actually intellectually incoherent. And obviously, for these reasons, obviously there will be people who want to make a religion of hating Jews and that kind of thing. But I'm saying, the idea is ipso facto incoherent and self-contradictory. Whatever it proposes. And this is really the problem of creating a new religion. You actually have to think quite carefully about it. I know people who think, well, I don't believe in this religion, and I don't really believe in what's it called, Apollonianism or something. That's one of the sort of latest thing amongst white nationalists. And the person, I forget his name now. He's this Iranian chap, isn't he? And he's saying, well, I don't really believe in it myself, but it might amuse others to worship the gods I conjure up, and I'm playing high priest to. And you think, no, if you're going to do it properly, you have to frame a narrative in which you are the prophet, or you have some kind of story that gives you authority to speak on behalf of the God that you claim to be representing. And I'm afraid these people haven't really thought it through, and that's why they should abandon it. And also, you can't really have a religion that is based only on race. Because of the fact is that, people of the same race, well, they fight all the time, don't they? Just because somebody's your race doesn't mean they're going to be nice to you. That's just so retarded if you think, the whole history of the West is provably so. The entire basis of the grievance of white nationalists would be that, their political classes don't care about them and let all these other races in that, which has destroyed their culture and their country and whatever. And, who let them in? People of your own race. So really, you need the rules to identify the behaviors that you have identified as harmful. So that's why you need rules. You must do this, you mustn't do that, and that's really why the law is so important. And on the matter of choosing religions, well, if you want to start from scratch, what religion would you choose? Would you just choose one that, whose ideas you like the best? Like, you want it to be nice and vague and, it can mean anything you want it to mean. So people don't get excited about, what it might really mean and, start getting angry or frightened. But if the words don't really mean anything, then whoever is in charge will twist the words to make it mean what they want it to mean. And so, whether you like it or not, it has to be clearly stated, what the hell it's supposed to forbid and enjoin. And, we've got way better books than, the white man's Bible that Klassen compiled. And the fact that he committed suicide is, it just doesn't add to his status at all. Because the whole thing about prophets is that, in the case of Jesus, he had to say it, his papa was God, right? And his mama was a virgin when she had him. So, that kind of gives him special status, so that he's divine and magic and all that sort of thing. Breaking the tradition of Jews who say that all their prophets have to be mortal, and because mortal, fallible. So you can see that the Abrahamic God has, involved quite a sophisticated and holistic system of that is unfalsifiable. So it already says that God is ineffable, i.e., cannot be equated to anything that we have ever seen or ever known. That what we see around us, and that the universe is his creation and he exists outside it as pure spirit and energy, and we just shouldn't expect to see him at all. And we are to dismiss as frauds anyone who claims to be divine. So this is, and this is quite a sophisticated way of making sure that nobody can claim to be prophet and get away with it. Mind you, Jesus got away with it for 2,000 years, didn't he? But 2,000 years is maybe just 2 minutes for the Abrahamic God. But 2,000 years is a long time to not notice that Christianity is exactly what the Ten Commandments forbade. It is idolatry and it is blasphemy. And the narrative of Christianity is that Jesus was indeed convicted of and crucified for blasphemy when he said his papa was God. So I don't really know, how else I can make it clearer that, on its own terms, Christianity is breaking all the rules of the Ten Commandments, and for 2,000 years, Christians haven't really noticed. And I suppose whenever it was pointed out to them, they would visit violence on people who dared to point things out to Christians, until eventually they lost the stomach to burn heretics at the stake. So I found a few commandments to look at. Let's see if I scrolled up all the way. Oh no. Oh no, I scrolled all the way up to the, and now it's gone again. Oh, maybe I can keep you entertained, because I do want to read it. I mean, it was just basically a list of beliefs. We believe this, we believe that. And basically, you don't have to do anything. You just, claim to believe in all kinds of things, but don't really believe it. So really, for religions, that there's usually something you have to do, or not do, to be a member of the group, of the religious group that you claim to be part of. Okay, I'll give you a few examples. It says, what we believe, the daily affirmation of the faith of the creators. 1. We believe in the eternal laws of nature as revealed through science, history, logic, and common sense. 2. We believe that the highest law of nature is the survival of our species by all means and at all costs. See, it's far too vague. 3. We believe that our race is our religion. Too vague. 4. We believe that our racial loyalty is the greatest of all honours and racial treason is the worst of all crimes. 5. We believe that what is good for the white race is the highest virtue and what is bad for the white race is the ultimate sin, but it doesn't define what is good or bad. 6. We believe that the white race is the finest and noblest creation of nature. 7. We believe that creativity is the essence of the white racial soul. 8. We believe that the white race is and always has been the originator and creator of all worthwhile culture and civilization. 9. We believe that without the white race, any worthwhile culture and civilization are impossible. 10. We believe that for the white race to survive, expand, and advance, we need first of all a revolution of values through religion. Therefore, we completely and categorically reject the Judeo-Christian, democratic, Marxist, liberal, feminist values of today and supplant them with new and basic values, of which race is the foundation. Again, far too vague. 11. We believe that Jew-spawned Christianity is the deadly mind poison which destroyed the glorious white Roman civilization and is currently destroying all of the white race. Therefore, Christianity must be exposed, defeated, and eliminated in order to save the white race. Well, you don't need to eliminate that. You just have to give it up and use a better religion. 12. We believe that the one and only true and revolutionary white racial religion, creativity, is in every conceivable way far more logical, consistent, comprehensive, meaningful, and inspiring than all other religions, ideologies, and political parties combined. Therefore, we strive that it eventually replace all other religions, ideologies, and parties, barring none. 13. We believe in the unity of our white racial religion with our white racial state. 14. We believe in the total unification of the white race on the basis of one racial religion, creativity, and one racial language, Latin, in a worldwide white racial community. Now, I think it's going to be a bit difficult to get white people who no longer even learn English grammar to wrestle with Latin grammar. I think it's apart from, all the other stuff, I think that's going to be practically impossible. If he had said Esperanto, maybe, that might work. 15. We believe that the one and only true and revolutionary white racial religion, creativity, has the potential of not only leading the white people to a worldwide victory, but also guiding them onward for the next million years towards a new white renaissance, a whiter and brighter world, and a glorious era of the white Superman. Creativity is, I think you'll have to agree with me that it's too generic. It seems to be saying that only white people can be creative, and that's plainly not the case. And of course, the most creative idea, I would say, is the most creative, conceptual act of thought would be the Abrahamic God. So we don't know what race Abraham was. I know he wasn't Jewish because Jews didn't exist in those days. Jews only came into being when the Torah was handed to Moses on Mount Sinai. But, before that, Jews as a people didn't exist. And I know you can ask, well, who were the people who came out of Egypt with Moses? And I would have to say that having read about how the plebs of Rome dealt with the patricians when they didn't like their working conditions, they would just leave the city. They would just leave, and that was their way of going on strike. So this kind of migration, well, I guess when they got their conditions negotiated properly, then they would come back, and after the patricians got tired of cleaning their own toilets or something. So what Moses did, seems like what the Romans did too, and that was the only way they could withdraw their labor. They couldn't go on some sort of general strike, so they had to actually leave the city. And so that was basically what Moses did. And obviously, I think that not all of them spoke the same language, but once they left Egypt and founded the ancient kingdom of Israel, then it meant that they had become a people, whatever, even it was a mixture of people that came out of Egypt, and then they were basically just slaves who withdrew their labor from the Pharaoh. I'll continue reading more Number 16, we believe that the white race, its biological and cultural heritage, is now under attack by our mortal racial enemies, Jews, N-words, and the mud races. 17, we believe that due to the Jew-instigated demographic explosion of the mud races, we must, as a matter of life and death, not only start but also win the worldwide white racial holy war within this generation. 18. We believe that Rahowa, racial holy war, under the victorious flag of the one and only true and revolutionary white racial religion, creativity is the only road to the resurrection and redemption of the white race. So that's kind of your thought commandments. Which I would say is, impracticable. And therefore, not a viable religion, really. And anyone who understands the construction of any religion, as I do a little bit, will know, it's not going to work. I mean, and also my legal training tells me that, certain things have to be defined properly, and it's just not in creativity. So that's really the problem. I mean, I'm not going to, argue about whether I agree with all the, all this stuff. Obviously I don't, but even if I did, it just isn't viable as a religion. And also the whole idea of a religion is that more than one person has to share it. And, if you don't get at least a group of people who share those beliefs, who, live within a distinct community, who've established their own religious foundation, you haven't got a religion, and, this isn't going to happen. If you tried, you'd probably get thrown in prison. So, why go to that trouble when you already know that, the opposition is overwhelming? So, what is to be done if you want to change your political situation? I would say that you have to choose the best available religion, and the thing about that is that, it's not like, it's a car, shopping at Harrods or anything like that. You don't. It's nothing. It's already there. It's free, really. It's free. You don't have to, think in terms of whether you can afford it or not. You go for the best one, right? You go for the religion with the most powerful deity. You go for the religion with the longest running track record. And you go for the religion with the clearest rules. So you have 3 criteria, at least, to choose from. And you have it all in spades in the Quran. Because obviously, Allah is the most powerful deity conceivable, who is also the God of Israel, who is the God of the Jews, who are the world's most ancient and powerful tribe, which means that they've come a long way since, being fleeing slaves from Egypt. And even though they haven't done, all that well over the centuries, because they got themselves kicked out of Israel by the Romans. The fact is they managed to stay together. They have their ark, which contains the Torah, the scripture which tells them who they are and what they must do. So you can see how they built upon an idea which you may think it's pure fantasy, because you can think of well they're just two children competing with each other, one saying my God can do anything, and the other child saying, well, my God can not only do everything or anything, he knows everything. And then the other child will say, not only can my God do anything and knows everything, he is morally perfect. And because he can do anything and knows everything and is morally perfect, he will give us justice eventually in this life or the next. And once this idea came about, it became, well, it is irresistibly seductive, isn't it? If such a God exists, then we would want to believe that eventually all wrongs will be righted, if only we have the right mindset and made ourselves worthy of the justice that we crave for. So once this idea was conceived of, I suppose it was only a matter of time before Scripture came along to reinforce this idea. And then and a community had to be created, would be, the people to represent the adherents of the scripture. And once these people were successful, people would want to, well, other groups, the rest of humanity, in fact, would want to get a bit of this rule of law and this idea of perfect justice at some time, somewhere in the next life, if not this one. So as an idea, it is irresistibly seductive. And the other thing I was going to say is that Jews come in four colours. Technically, officially, formally, anyone can convert to Judaism. And, if they do all the right things, they pass their exams, they become Jews. So it's not actually closed to anyone for reasons of race. And we know that Jews come in four colours, and therefore, it's not based on race. So if divine ethno-nationalism, which is what Judaism is, does not deal in race in purely physical terms, then nothing else can possibly beat it. So if Judaism is already divine ethno-nationalism, then what else can beat it apart from divine civic nationalism, which is what Islam is? So you do have just these two competing ideas. And obviously, if your Gentile nation were a righteous Gentile nation, then you would be able to deal with your problems more promptly and avoid all the problems that you've been having so far, which was a consequence of the failure of Christianity. I hope I've explained reasonably well why creativity can't work, but well, I don't know. Have I made it clear? So Osadzitu kind of anticipated what I was going to say at the very beginning. So the oneness of God is agreed on by Judaism and Islam. They don't associate partners with God the way Christians do, and just make it strong and simple. The idea is strong and simple, and they're making it easy to defend, unlike Christianity and the Trinity, which is, well, enormously complicated and can't be explained easily or convincingly. I take your point that Muslims don't believe that Adam and Eve were kicked out of heaven for what sin? I don't know what sin that for disobeying God, for eating from the tree of knowledge and life. I think the aspiration was that to was to be like God, wasn't it? But it doesn't really matter as long as you get the story right. We can always argue about the motivations for forevermore. Tiv asks, when you think about it, is this group any different than BLM? Well, yeah, it is narrow to base your moral system on people who look like you. In particular, when you already know that not everybody who shares the same shade of skin as you is going to be your friend anyway. And I think a lot of people, even if they're racist, they sort of know that not everybody of your race is going to be your friend, and not everybody who isn't of your race is going to be your enemy. And you're just left with the job of trying to work out from examining their motives and their history and whatever, whether they be friend or foe. And that's how you should do it. You can't, it's just silly to think, people of a certain colour are all good or all evil. It is, well, not viable. You think I sound deflated? No, I don't feel deflated. Maybe because I was talking quietly. Do you take that for being deflated? I don't feel deflated at all. It's cultural problems or cultural practices, right? So cultural practices can be dealt with, with a law saying you can't do this, you can't do whatever it is that is in your culture from another country, because in Rome you do as the Romans do. So that's all you need to do. I mean, obviously you're saying there's going to be a problem because you're officials, your administrators, your politicians are corrupt and incompetent, but then, you'll have to make them competent and not corrupt. And you can only do that by changing the rules. And you can only change the rules by saying you want to change the rules, and then you have to argue the whole thing through and say, why your system would be better and why it should replace the current corrupt system. And somebody has got to, make those arguments. So that's really all I want to say on the subject. I hope that's been clear enough. Thank you all for listening.